Okay, so get comfy. That's it. I've done a live stream for a little while. Done a lot of videos last couple of days. A lot of videos. Um, we covered the MLS quite a bit. We have covered English Premier League quite a bit. We've covered the VAR. We've covered multiple sackings and managers leaving clubs. We've covered the Major League Baseball. We've covered contract extensions for players. We've covered Major League Rugby. We've covered injuries that are ruling players out of the World Cup. We wow uh, covered player wealth, not how much they earn. Let's get that right. God, the lighting is shocking, isn't it? We've covered careers of cricket players, including we've covered Jack Callis, Ryan Sidebottom, and Wasim Akram, cricket players. So we've covered them. And we've done a few podcasts the last couple of days. So the podcast means I can talk about multiple topics in a video, and I can go on a bit longer and into a bit more depth and be a bit different than what I would normally be in the short, sweet videos that I do. I can talk for more than 10 minutes on a subject and then go on to another subject and then another subject and then go from there. But in the latest podcast, we covered the FIFA World Cup and the issues with the World Cup. We covered the NHL playoffs and the issues there. And we covered Israel Folau and his antics and his clear hatred of the LGBT community that's disguised under religious pretenses. There's a lot of videos done, mate. A lot of topics we've discussed. Going through all my notes here, just notes and notes. I've covered Rugby League Challenge Cup today. Covered that. Covered a lot of stuff today. So yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free to whack them in the chat section, and I will do my best to answer them. This is going to be a bit of a shorter live stream, but we'll go for about an hour and a half. We're not going to go as long as previous ones because, well, I want to go and celebrate starting a new job on Monday, so I'm going to go out and see a few mates down the pub. So yeah, we're going to go to that one, 9:30, 9:40, and then I'm going to head out for a little bit. I think I might. Here we go. Unfortunately, parking on a ticket. Yeah, well, I saw you post a video on that earlier, Mike. I did see that. I felt that the playoff final should be on free-to-air TV anyway, because there are some big clubs. Tranmere are a reasonably sized club in the northwest. The fact they've been in the non-league for a couple of years is unfortunate, but it's a Wembley final, and this links into the sale of Wembley, which we've covered on this channel for a while now. Some people say, and this, bear in mind, people have listened to ESPN. Now, ESPN is owned by Disney, and Disney is trying to buy Sky News and Fox and Sky Sports. And of course, they're going to try and allay the fears that the ticket price won't go up. But ESPN is an American company, which does have subsidiaries owned by the people, but it is basically an American brand. And 46 quid. Yeah, no, that's not the only final at Wembley that fans have complained about. They've complained about pricing for the FA Cup final. They complained about pricing for the League Two, League One, and Championship playoff finals also, which are yet to come. They've complained about the FA Vars final. They've complained about a lot, and the issue is there that the FA are trying to rake in as much money as possible, and they're going to sell anyway, and the ticket price will go through the roof. Did I see rugby? No, I watched the rugby league. I was watching the Challenge Cup game between Castleford and St Helens. I do not have Sky. I don't have BT. But I heard the result. I heard it came down to the last minute. Leinster, I think, have now broken a record for European Cup wins in the rugby union. And we can discuss the history, the success of Leinster and Munster in European rugby over the last 15 years. And I might do a video on that. I haven't had a chance though. I did watch the rugby league today, and I did a video on that. So if you're interested in the rugby league result in the Challenge Cup and the fact that I'll be also watching the Toronto Wolfpack game tomorrow, which is brilliant because it's Canadian rugby league against the Warrington Wolves, and that's going to be really, really, really interesting for rugby league fans in general, because obviously I've done a video on Major League Rugby and how that's growing in the US rugby union, and now you've got Toronto Wolfpack playing in the Challenge Cup 6th round for the first time in rugby league. So both codes of rugby, I think, in North America are really growing rapidly, and that's going to be fun to look at. Just adjust the camera a little bit because the lighting here is not great. I have to admit, the lighting in here is not great. But back to the football ticket price. There's been a lot of complaints about Club Wembley and the ticket pricing that Wembley Stadium has for these finals and matches. Complaints have been going on for quite some time. I think for a non-league ticket, that is absolute joke. It's wrong. Bear in mind the level of football they play at. And that's still twice the amount of money for an elite league ice hockey ticket. And that's a top level of ice hockey in this country. It's still twice the value. I don't see it as right. I found rugby tickets for the English Premiership cheaper than that. Double-header tickets as well in my time. So I think the price of football is wrong. The fact that they don't really advertise these things very well. The allocations given to the clubs are not big enough. A club of Tranmere's size, I mean, the Northwest is a football mad area of the country, and Tranmere should never been in the conference. Let's be honest; they were unfortunate in what happened, but they did decline on the pitch. But for their fan base, that's wrong. The Northwest is not necessarily the wealthiest area of the country either. Neither is Boreham Wood, where they come from. They're not necessarily the wealthiest areas of the country for wages and employment prospects. So 46 quid for a single ticket is wrong. Imagine if you're taking a couple of mates with you or your family, that adds up. That's not including travel costs. Because Tranmere is in the Wirral, which is Merseyside basically. South side of the River Mersey, that's a long way to come down for a game. That's a long way to travel. That's not taking into consideration the costs of that travel, and that's wrong. Next weekend is the FA Cup final, and add an extra 100 quid onto that ticket price, and that's an average ticket price for the FA Cup final this year. And I think it's wrong. I don't know what the FA's pricing strategy is. I'm not sure how much say the National League would have, as it's not at a National League stadium. It is actually at Wembley. They're hosting the playoff final. So it's an FA sanctioned stadium. I don't know how much to say the National League has. Maybe they should have kicked up more of us and complained more. I don't know. But it is a playoff to get into an FA sanctioned competition, which is the Football League. It's an interesting one with the point you raise, and this comes up a lot, as you would have seen on this channel. I know you haven't been subscribed very long, but at the time you've been subscribed, Mike, we have discussed this on a weekly, every podcast, every live stream. It comes up weekly. It's a thing that it's a regular thing. It's not going away. It's a problem that, and I've had this discussion with some of my American subscribers, because obviously they work in dollars, and I've tried to basically, compare and contrast how much they would pay for their major league sports in the US and Canada, and the tickets. And if you were to convert what they pay in American dollars directly to pounds without the exchange rate, tax on there and that little fee, ticket prices, if the FA do sell the Sahi Khan, which I hope they don't, ticket prices, you can add an extra 10-15 quid. If that sale goes ahead, that's an extra 10-15 quid for a playoff final, for every final, minimum. It's a money grab. They see us as a cash grab. And the FA hasn't been very transparent in their ticketing price policy. They haven't been very clear in what level of football should warrant what level of ticket. And that's why I'm not surprised that the Women's FA Cup final, which was played at Wembley, yes, it was a record crowd, but again, I'm not surprised that there were so many empty seats in the bottom two tiers, and they only opened part of the top tier of Wembley for fans. I was not surprised. You would have thought they were completely taped off the top tier and tried to fill the bottom two tiers for TV, but no, they empty seats all over the place in the bottom two tiers as well, which was a shame. So again, ticket price, women's football as well. How much were they charging for those tickets? Bear in mind, my women's FA Cup final video in the last couple of weeks is one of my more popular videos for the size of the channel and how many views I got for it. That's a problem. There was clearly a lot of interest all around the world for that women's FA Cup final. I looked at the data, and there were people watching from all over the world. There was a lot of Africans, South Americans, and North Americans, Europeans, people from Australasia and Asia, people all over the world clearly had an interest in women's football. And I don't know what the ticket price was for that final, but yeah, they got a record attendance. But how much were they charging? Because they could have just sold out the lower tier and the middle tier. Okay, then again, level of football that's been played, the style of football being played, women's football is not on the same comparable level at the moment with men's football, and I don't think it will be for a very, very long time, if at all, because there are reasons for that, and whether they're right or wrong. But again, they should have closed off the top tier of Wembley then, because it looked really bad having part of the top tier with some people sitting up there in a huge swathe of emptiness. Just tape it off and just have the bottom two tiers, and that would have packed out that 40,000. I think all those seats would have been filled. But no, the FA didn't do that, so it looked really bad for TV. It just looks bad when you see those lots of empty seats. But I've noticed more and more games this season in the FA Cup. Swansea fans especially weren't turning up, but I've noticed when I watch the highlight shows of the FA Cup, the Football League, and the Premier League, a lot of empty seats at stadiums. So the question of the price of the ticket keeps coming up week on week, every video, every live stream, at least for a good 5 minutes on that live stream. And so far, for half the live stream, we've discussed the price of the ticket. So far, the viewership on the Tranmere Boreham Wood final has been really good. I've had one dickhead say the sound quality, the video was crap and the quality was crap. It's like, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Simple. I don't get some people, well, they have to leave abusive crap. If you don't like what you see, don't watch it. Simple. And some people just can't take the simple option. They've got to be abusive as well. But there we go. We'll sort him out later. No, we could discuss a few other issues. Let's have a look at some of the videos I've done in the last couple of days. You've got to get the old notebook. I'm gold. We've got notes everywhere here. Got more notes in there in the other room. But we decided to use the good old notebook properly because I've had this from my old job and I nicked a notebook. I'm deciding to do even more research on my videos than just covering basic topics and going from my point of view. I'm actually literally going in and being a bookworm more and more each video. And the MLS video has got some interesting comments on it and discussion points. Well, I've got a standard laptop with a standard mic. I could use my headset, but when I watch my videos back, I don't see there's a problem. I think it's more to do with maybe my internet connection, the quality of the webcam I've got. But I got this laptop half price. It's a 3-year-old laptop that they were phasing out by HP. Big deal. You don't like it, don't watch it. If the channel makes me money and this job makes me money, new laptop on the way, yeah. But I've only had this laptop 3 months. I've had no problems with it. I find it a very good laptop. The webcam possibly could be better. The microphone could possibly pick up. The microphones are up there, up here, right there. There's the camera and the microphone's right next to it. So I do the best with the equipment I've got. It's better than my iPad. Let's just say that my iPad had loads of problems. But I'm looking through some of the videos I've done, and look. I will say this: the more idiots you get on your channel, the more popular your channel's getting. Because you think, I've got 243 subscribers, maybe 244. Because I think I might have got another subscriber since I've been making this video, since I've been on this live stream. I've become a less reactionary fan to more just a general sports fan. And yeah, I've got notes on the formation of the Premier League, and I went through like the omissions of teams that weren't actually there. The VAR grand final failure in the A-League. That's something that I had to look at the players. I was like, who is this guy? I didn't even know who Greg O'Rourke was. He's the head of the A-League. I had to look at that. Then I looked at a few of the stats for some of these managers who been hired and fired, and I looked at Iron Robin and things like that, and the Major League Baseball. And it's difficult covering so many sports, and occasionally mistakes get made. And I've had a few idiots whinge about, I gave Stoke an extra 2 years in the Premier League. I think Stoke fans should be grateful that I'm kind enough to give them 2 extra years in the Premier League because their team is that bad and some of their fans are that moronic. But no, in the last couple of days, I've done a lot of cricket videos. If you may notice today, I've put up 3 cricketing videos on player profiles of some of my favourite players, which I did promise in a live stream I would do, and I've started doing it, admittedly a month late, but I have to look at all their test matches, their wickets, their run rate, the amount of runs they scored, the amount of games they played, their run average. It's a pain in the arse because some of this stuff will not make a lot of sense to the average sports fan who may not look at advanced stats, and I hate advanced stats. They really piss me off because there's always that one person who goes, "You're not using their advanced stats correctly." I mean, I was looking at hello Sean, nice how's it going? It's been good, thank you. We've had some horrible weather. It's been raining pretty much for 12 hours, but it hasn't rained for pretty much it's only rained once in a week. We've had a very hot beginning of May, so it's quite nice to cool down a little bit. It's going to get hot again next week, and I start my new job Monday, so I'm doing my live stream tonight rather than tomorrow night because I've got to be up at like 5 in the morning my time Monday to sort out my motorcycle, my work gear, all sorts of bits and pieces, check oil levels, petrol, that kind of crap. But no, I've been looking at lots of stats, as you say, Mark. I've been doing loads of research, and yeah, my picture quality isn't the best. This isn't the most expensive laptop. I couldn't afford the laptop I wanted. And it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I'm using my notebook a lot more than I was, let's say, this time last year when I was doing the videos. I was more a reactionary sports fan. And as time went on, when I started doing my rugby league NRL videos, I was looking at. I had to get the notebook out, and I had pages and pages of crap, and I mean, every time that I watch a game on TV, football, rugby league, rugby union, I literally sit there and I do get a big sheet of paper, put both team names at the top, and I basically turn into a bookworm. And my family go, "What are you doing?" So I'm taking notes for research purposes. And what do you mean? He's like, "Trust me, I'm watching the game, but I'm also every time there's a moment like a sending off, a try, or a goal if it's football or ice hockey, or a try if it's rugby." Yeah, I put the player's name down, the time it occurs, the score at that point, and I mean, yeah, I did that for the rugby league today. I've done that in I think every football game, FA Cup game since January. I've done that as well. I mean, last night it would have rained where you were overnight, so you wouldn't have seen it. But yeah, no, the weather there's been some heavy rain today. It's slowly clearing. Whether that has an effect tomorrow in the rugby league and the football, we shall see. It's all about, but the weather only affects your game if you've got poor drainage, unless it's cricket, at which point it gets rained off. If you've got a stadium with not great drainage, then it becomes difficult, and that changes the quality and the style you have to play. And you will see this in the World Cup in the summer next month. You will see that in Russia, much like we've had the weather here, we've had a long warm spell, hot spell, lots of sunshine, not a lot of damp weather, high pressure system, and then a low pressure system or a weaker high pressure system with a bit more moisture in it clashes and thunderstorms happen, and you're going to see the drainage of these Russian pitches in the World Cup next month be tested severely. But no, it's interesting. I mean, I've covered about, I think, 5 different sports today on the channel. I've looked at, I would say the last 24 hours, yeah, about 5 different sports. But I'm always interested to hear from you guys if you want me to cover a certain player, a certain team, a certain moment in sport. Like I say, like, I don't know, the 1988 FA Cup final where Wimbledon beat Liverpool, for example. I would be more than happy to go back and revisit the crazy game. I'm more than happy to look at various things. This is why I do these live streams, is because it gives me an idea of what you guys want me to discuss, what you guys want me to research, what you guys would like for me to look at. I've learned stuff from you guys have learned stuff from me, and yeah, okay, my webcam isn't the best and the picture quality could be better, and that's down to the pissing laptop I've got. I mean, if I had an extra grand, I would have got a laptop, far more powerful processor, much more memory, but I got what I got because I needed one, and this suited my needs perfectly. My iPad, I could still do videos on my iPad, but it takes so long to upload off my iPad. The picture quality is better, but the sound quality is even worse, and there's a lot of stuttering on the sound quality, and you can hear this background noise. It's horrible. It's nearly 4 years old, so I don't really use it much. My mobile phone, if I'm out and about and let's say, I see something, I'm at a game, or it is what it is. I occasionally do on my mobile phone. I've done a few uploads of that when it's the middle of the night and I don't want to get the laptop out. I have to go downstairs and make noise and plug it in and turn it on and get it going. So I just use my phone occasionally. I'm working at a private plant nursery where basically posh people ask for, let's say, plants to be grown and Kew Gardens and stuff. And it's down in Surrey, and I'll be going down there. I'm on a short-term contract to start with, and then we'll see what happens. Basically, the rich and famous and the well-to-do place orders for their private gardens to have plants, and then Kew Gardens and the Chelsea Flower Show will also buy plants from this place. So I've got to be on the ball. Don't need much skill to do it. I've just got to do a bit of trimming, bit of potting, bit of watering, and a bit of loading and unloading of the vans. It doesn't take a genius to do what I'll be doing. Hopefully the weather's nice and it's pissing with rain because I've got a ride on my motorbike for like 45 minutes, and it's a tricky ride in places. There's a few. I know where I'm going. It's just the roads are a bit dangerous. And not the best of repair in Surrey. There's a few potholes, and I've got to go from Berkshire to Surrey. It's a pain in the arse. I've got to go over the M3. I've got to go down some country lanes. It's going to be fun, though. It's going to be fun. It's going to be an experience. So I think Queen's Club order some of their plants from their surrounding, their flower beds. So yeah, well-to-do rich people buy things from here. I think that's all I'm allowed to say. Really, I don't know much more about it. I don't know as well who I've got to report to. Time I start, day I start, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no, I mean the weather it's fun. I've done gardening jobs before. I've done laying cable. I've done all sorts. I've done demo jobs. You name it, I've done a fair bit of it. It's fun when you're out and about and you're having a laugh. And I used to play at my local rugby club, so I'm used to being outside and getting very cold and very wet. It's not a lot of bother to me. I've done all sorts of outdoor jobs. I like them. I actually prefer them over being inside a hot warehouse or a hot factory or a stuffy office or a cold warehouse. I've been in them as well. But it's good fun. Not a lot of sports questions tonight. I was like, what's your job doing? No, it's different. If it means I can upgrade some of my equipment and get get a few bits and pieces of nice stuff and a few other bits of sports memorabilia, and pay my rent, pay my bike insurance, and my phone bill and my laptop insurance, I'm content. I've got to pay for a lot of stuff in the next 2 months, so I'm happy that I've got it at the right time, and then things will start sorting themselves out in the way that I want to. And if this channel gets monetized, that means extra money coming in, and any extra money is good for finding a place to live. Basically, or improving the tech that I use. It means for the next month there may be less videos per day and less live streams. That's the only downside, is I'll be able to come in the evening after a very long day and a lot of commuting, and I'll be limited in the amount of time. I'll be pretty knackered. Let's be honest. I'm going to be out on my feet all day. So when I get in, I literally am going to have a couple of hours to do a couple of videos, and I'm going to have to reduce the amount of videos I do for a while. But at least I know going forward that's what's going to happen. I mean, when I had my last job, I tried to do too many videos. I didn't have the laptop back then. I had just the iPad and the phone, and it was a bit more difficult to get the length of video I wanted as well. My iPad didn't like videos over 15 minutes long. It just did not like doing them. I didn't want to do live streams on that because the battery doesn't last very long. The memory's not good enough. I overheated a lot. My phone, again, limited to the length of video I can do. So with this, I can have really long videos. I could do more podcasts if you want, if people like that. I've enjoyed doing those little podcasts. I've done 3 episodes so far, and I find that may be the way forward. When I start work, I might do a couple of short videos on an individual thing and do more podcasts in the evening. That could be something that happens more often. So watch out for like podcast type stuff and maybe longer videos with several topics discussed, unless it's really, you know, an individual topic. I think when the World Cup comes along, yeah, I would do individual videos on games, but it's what it is. If I could cite, I mean, it doesn't matter what player. Now we're getting back to a sports question. Great, we've discussed all the tech stuff and all the job stuff and all the non-sport stuff. If I could sign one, Mahrez or Zaha, who would you choose? Debate on the City forum. I'm not a City fan, and I never will be. So that's one thing we've got clear. I don't think Mahrez or Zaha are good enough defensively, and that is a problem City will have long term, I think. And that's me being brutally honest. I think there is some defensive frailties in that City side. They need someone who's going to put a tackle in. Mahrez pulls out tackles and Zaha mistimes them. I think Zaha's got a better work ethic. I think he is a very underrated player, but I think Crystal Palace actually suits Wilfried Zaha more because of the role Hodgson's got him doing and Palace had him playing. I think Mahrez has got a good showed last summer that his temperament is all wrong. He got very and in the last few transfer windows, Mahrez has tried to force a move, and the club said, "No, you're not going anywhere." All they had to say to him was, "Give us another 6 months, and you're on your way." Like Coutinho, I think Mahrez tried to force a transfer when clearly Leicester weren't going to let him go. And also, there's been allegations of Man City tapping him up, which is against the rules as well, and possibly illegal because that's against contract law. I think if let's say Blackburn were back to the Premier League, I would have Wilfried Zaha over Mahrez because of what Zaha brings to a team. But I still think if you're a City fan, I think Zaha is actually better suited to Crystal Palace. I think you wouldn't get the best out of Zaha in the system that Guardiola plays. Palace is a system that suits him because you've got the rough and tumble, and then he can be the skill player because those hard midfielders, those box-to-box midfielders they have, and the defence they have, means he then gets space because they are a physical team, and Man City aren't a physical enough team to suit Zaha's play with his pace. Mahrez, I think they can't afford to sign both because that will be a breach of financial fair play. But as we've seen with financial fair play, UEFA and FA don't force it, so it's a joke. So they probably will. But Mahrez has got one thing that Zaha doesn't have, and that's a Premier League title, and that's I think what they'll look for, or they'll sign neither. Now, if we go by Guardiola's previous standard, he will employ a lot of those youth players. He will promote youth players, but he hasn't shown that so far at City by placing those youth players in his buying, which is weird. That's against his mantra that he's done at Barcelona and at Bayern. So I'm thinking Guardiola's stay at Man City may be a shorter one than people realise. Do I think Costa Rica will do as good as they did in the last World Cup? Yes, they have that mentality. They have that togetherness. Latin America is a football mad part of the world. From Mexico all the way down to Patagonia, there's professional teams, the length and breadth. There's professional football length and breadth. It is a religion from the Rio Grande down to Terra del Fuego. It is a religion. I think, yes, Costa Rica, what they showed 4 years ago, I think they can be as good. They've produced good players consistently for years. I remember the days of Paulo One Shop. Yes, I'm that old. If you don't know who he is, just type in Paulo One Shop into Wikipedia. Brilliant, if not mercurial, sometimes a bit streaky forward player. But I remember him playing at the 2006 World Cup in his 30s. I remember watching him, I think, at Aston Villa and Man City play. He was an underrated player, but again, he was a streaky player. It was all about confidence with him. And you could go long spells without doing much. Then you have those 4 or 5 games where he suddenly gets 10 goals and then he's doing nothing for the next 30. But I think Costa Rica, Latin American players were very good technically. A lot of them do play in Europe. And Costa Rica, I think, have a very solid base and a foundation where they can look back at the video footage of 4 years ago. They can adjust their tactics. They can adjust bits and pieces. But they've got a good team unity. And team unity proved a lot more than necessary pure skill. I mean, Messi, skillful player, couldn't win the World Cup. Germany, unified team, unified purpose, won the World Cup. So team unity can trump individual brilliance. I do think there'll be more goals this World Cup than last World Cup. I do see that the quality level of football, the world class level, is not so world class now as it was 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 18, whatever many years ago. I think there's a lot more young players forcing in because managers are going with more pace and speed, same as the NHL. And these young players are being forced to play professional top level football, I think, before they're fully developed. They make more mistakes. The defensive qualities aren't as good. And as we've seen in the Champions League this year, I'm not sure if you've watched any European football this year. I know you call it soccer over there, but the defensive qualities aren't as good, and goalkeeping has been atrocious at times. There's been some real high-scoring games, which you would not normally expect from teams of that quality, being so open at the back. But it's a style of football at the moment that everything's so mad. Do you see the proposal for a 2-year World Cup mini tournament? If so, thoughts? There's a problem with that. It's called the World Cup cycle because you've got the African Cup of Nations, the Copa America, or the Copa de Libertadores, I think, the South American Championship. You've got the CONCACAF Championship as well. You've got the Euros. You've got the Asian Cup. You've got the Confederations Cup. I don't know how they're going to fit that into the international calendar at all. I cannot see them. I mean, I think there's already complaints that the players are being overplayed now and playing too much. There's already complaints that we've got to have a winter break in the English league. I know European leagues only have a week to 2 weeks themselves, which some people claim is not long enough. Other people are against a winter break, but there are concerns that it's the same with rugby, that they're playing too many games. I don't know. I've heard this argument in ice hockey as well. In the various leagues, I know European ice hockey we play less games than the NHL, but this is coming up a lot with the scheduling of games that professional sportsmen are playing too much, which could explain why people like Andy Murray are having a lot of injuries in their sports, and Tiger Woods having a lot of injuries because they don't get the rest time they need. So on that point, I think I'm against it for the simple fact the welfare of the athletes and the players. It goes for any sport. I don't know why they're playing the World Ice Hockey World Championships when the Stanley Cup players are still going on. I think they could move that back a month and treat it like similar to the World Cup, whereby you want the best players going, and half the best players in the world can't go and represent their countries because they're playing in the Stanley Cup, whereas all the other national leagues and international ice hockey leagues around the world have all finished now. So we had this debate at the Olympics as well. I mean, there's the debate about the bye weeks in the NHL. There's the debate about the bye weeks in the NRL. There's debates about all sorts. It's not just a football or soccer issue, because I don't know, Sean is Canadian. It's an issue for all sports, whereby are they overplaying them? And it's been discussed for a long time. I'm personally against it. I think that would be I'm going to adjust the camera angle. That's a little bit better. Bit annoying having me partly chopped in half. I think it's more them trying to make as much money as possible. And I don't know. Yes, I'm definitely against the expansion. That would be insane. I don't know how that could be even possibly thought of. Too many teams. I think 32 is the perfect size for an international tournament and a league as well. If you look at the NHL, they're at 31. They want to go to 32. That is the perfect size because it makes the knockout system perfect. There's none of this second round, another second. That tournament will be even longer than it is now. I think it's 6 weeks at the moment for the World Cup. That means it will have to go for 2 months, and that is a lot of strain on the local nation it's in, and the infrastructure of that country. Because to get a World Cup now, you've got to spend so much money building the stadiums, the transport infrastructure, the hotels, changing the road networks. Like sometimes you have to close off huge areas of cities for fan zones. In a short term, it's great having international events because it does bring money in, but in the long term, the locals will get seriously pissed off, and that will eat into the whole off season. The whole off season will go for a lot of players, and they won't get the break before they go back to their clubs to then play the league season. I think 32 is just about right, but if it goes to 48, that is a pure cash grab by FIFA, and FIFA is not my most popular organisation around the world right now. FIFA hasn't sorted out the issues that FIFA has. It hasn't done it well at all. But it's an interesting point. No one's actually raised that point in live streams. I know the World Cup isn't getting as much conversation that it should. It's only 33 days away. It's just over. It literally is. I think starts on the 15th or 16th of June. It's not that far away. I think it's 4.5 weeks. It's coming up on us quick, and we're already seeing players getting injured. Going back to the previous topic of being overplayed and overtraining them as well, overcoaching them, they're getting injured a lot, and that's coming into conversation. This time next year, we'll be having the same conversation about rugby when their World Cup's coming up with Rugby Union. Should the tournament expand? Should they change the international calendar even more? And there's already concerns that Rugby Union players and Rugby League players are playing too much. This conversation happens for every international tournament of every sport. We've got the Cricket World Cup next year. We've got the people say they're playing too many Test matches and too many ODIs and T20s. This conversation happens in multiple sports every single year without fail. So yeah, I would be against it. I think it devalues the competition when average teams are allowed to qualify who clearly have no hope of winning and they get embarrassed like 6, 7, 8 nil. I don't think that works, because then it makes a mockery of the qualifying competition. It makes the qualifying competitions even more complicated because you have more playoffs, which means some teams will actually play more games in qualifying than others, which affects world rankings as well and seedings for groups, which has implications for where they get put. And what country could accommodate 48 national teams, including their own, or 47 other nationalities? That's a lot of fans. You've got to think of these countries and these cities have enough hotel space, enough accommodation, enough fan zone space. Could they, safely look after all these foreign, foreigners in their country? There's a big issue about security. That would be a logistical nightmare. I don't think FIFA quite understand the logistics behind it. But the US is behind a bid after Qatar. The US wants to get the 2026 World Cup alongside Canada and Mexico. They're strongly linked with possibly, most likely, getting a World Cup. Would the American public be happy for that to happen, having 47 other countries descend for primarily on the US? And Sepp Blatter has weighed in on that as well, saying he thinks joint ventures at World Cups shouldn't happen, even though he was more than happy to have Japan and Korea in 2002. Because I can't see one single nation being able to cope with 48 nationalities and 48 separate base camps, 48 separate fan zones for international fan. All that kind of, I cannot see it being logistically possible. I really can't. But that's my opinion on that. I mean, the questions you raised have raised issues on a variety of topics, and yeah, they're all football related. And I understand that. I'm just getting the pop out chat so I can see the chat a bit better because it's a little bit dark and gloomy and I can't see it very well. But it'd be interesting to see the thoughts of people watching, because I can say I'm against something and I'm basing it on pure fact the logistics would be insane. I'm not sure if the police forces would be actually happy with having to control so many different nationalities, because you've got to look at the football hooligan problem we've seen. We've seen the Hamburg fans basically have a small stadium riot. We've seen Middlesbrough fans and Millwall fans try and go at each other, which you put on your channel. We've seen fan disorder at a lot of games this season involving English clubs, Scottish clubs, or British clubs, and other European and South American teams. There's been a lot of disorder at stadiums, and that's at club level. We haven't even got to the internationals yet. I mean, Russia have been fined again by FIFA for racist chanting. We can debate, how effective that's going to be. Hello. There's a lot of issues. So the logistics and the policing costs as well, the security costs, will be more than what they're worth, because you'll have thousands of more extra fans. Because approximately 10,000 British fans are going. So if you think there's 32 countries, so you take the Russians out of it, there's 31 countries. You think, okay, if 10,000 fans from each country, apart from maybe Iceland, you might bring the whole bloody country because there's only 230,000 people living in Iceland. If you think about it, if there's anywhere between 10,000 and 100,000 fans from each country descend on Russia, for example, times that by 31. That's a lot of people. If you have 48, that's even more people. Um, I don't see it as feasible, but FIFA will go after money. FIFA will try and make as much money as possible, considering all the corruption scandals they've had. Yes, Stephen Gerrard is now a Rangers manager as of next season. I don't know how that's going to work out for him. I think some Rangers fans need to keep their feet on the ground and work out. Look, you're still not on the same level with Celtic. You're still not at Celtic's level yet. Celtic are looking less dominant than they were, say, 2-3 years ago, but I don't know if the gap is close enough. Obviously, the fans are going to expect him to win, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to turn it around that quickly. He needs the support of the board. Yeah, that's the issue, Mike. Is you've got to think of this. Qatar is what, 500,000 to 1 million people, depending on what sources you read, because there's a lot of guest workers living there who can claim nationality if they are of Islamic background. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense expanding it to 48 because you've got to think: can the host country or countries, if the USA gets the next World Cup after Qatar, with Canada and Mexico also being able to host games, can those countries accommodate that many people extra on top of the normal tourists who already go there, or the normal business people who go for work? So you've got to take into consideration you've got the normal tourists and normal people on work trips. Can you also accommodate loads of drunken football fans, which is the majority of football fans? They drink hard, they fight hard. Oh yeah, no, the Russians and the LGBT community. The Foreign Office has given advice to fans of ethnic minority background and of the LGBT community to maybe not go. They basically said you can go, but don't express your LGBT credentials in public because you'll probably get the living crap beaten out of you by the authorities, let alone the hooligans. There are issues with the LGBT community in Russia now, and if you're an ethnic minority fan, yeah, it's probably not the best idea to go to Russia this summer. And of course, you've got loads of African nations going; they're going to suffer a huge amount of racist abuse. And some of these African fans are a bit nutty, and they probably wouldn't mind getting in a punch up with the Russians. Bearing in mind, Africa is probably the one continent where they're used to mass murder, and it doesn't phase these people. They will probably enjoy a good punch up with the Russians. The the issue with Qatar is, yeah, there are issues on women and other things as well. There's going to be, so the Foreign Office advice basically saying go and have fun, but they've told you not to travel by road because you could get ambushed. They've told you not to stray away from the fan zones or your hotel or the buses put on. So they're basically saying you're going to be told to go to about 5% of what you want to see. You can't go to the Kremlin, don't go to Red Square, even though other tourists are free to do it daily and have no problems. But because you're a football fan, you may be targeted by Russian hooligans. Basically, the Foreign Office is basically saying don't go in a veiled way. But yeah, Russia, it's not illegal to be gay. That's the funny thing. It's just if you are, let's say, a gay football fan and you get the living crap beaten out of you by a Russian hooligan, the police will do fuck all. They'll probably beat you up more than the hooligan. Because the funny thing is with Russian hooligans, a lot of them are military and police anyway on the day off. I'm not joking. Torpedo Moscow is the Navy team. Spartak is the Air Force. CSKA is the Army. The police team, I believe, is what's the other Moscow? There's another Moscow team. Oh, it's annoying me. Then you've got SKA, you've got Zenit. All these clubs have got links to either Locomotive. That's the one. That's the rail workers team. That's the trade unions team. Thank you, Locomotive. They're the one that's linked to, I think, MVD. Yeah, there's loads. There's loads. And this goes back to communist times. So now, it's a bit different, but a lot of their hooligans have links to those industries or those security forces, and they may have a brother or their mate. And on the day off, they suddenly also, mostly in the armed services. So one day they're there protecting you, and the next day they're trying to kill you, and then the next day they're protecting you again. So it's a complete crazy country. But the issue is you may not get the help that you expect from the authorities. Don't trust the authorities out there. And they're expecting about 10,000 England fans to travel. I would advise don't do it. I've had people on this channel ask me if I'm going to the World Cup. No, I value my life. I might, I've had a few mental health issues in my time, but I value my life. I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. I'm going to sit back here and watch the Germans, the Poles, the French, the Belgians, the Scandinavian countries. I'm going to watch them have a punch up with the Russians because they don't like them either. There's a lot of issues in Europe with Russia historically and recently, and a lot of the hooligan firms are actually going to go. And the worry I have is it's going to be a bloodbath away from the games. Sochi Olympics was different because that's more political, and therefore the Russians need to put on a good show without. And it's not football. Football is a tribal thing out there because it's the Olympic sports. You're not going to have the fan issue. That's the difference. The Sochi Olympics was a big political masterpiece, but it was basically like the Nazis with the Berlin Olympics with Putin. He used that in a way to say Russia's a nice place. We're not violent thugs. We're not homophobes. We're not, nationalistic and trying to seize eastern Ukraine. No, this is Sochi. This is a nice place. This is a tourist resort. We're friendly here, and it was all choreographed very well. The hooligans did not go down there. Football, however, it's a different thing. Completely different thing. Same with ice hockey in Russia as well. Some of their fans get a little bit make the NHL hardcore fans look a little bit soft. There's a big thing because the ice hockey and the football clubs are normally owned by the same people. They're normally linked. It's a European thing that the North Americans don't understand is we have sporting clubs that may have more than one sport associated with that club. So it may be football that club is famous for, or rugby, but they may have multiple sports associated. Russia is a strange place. I've got a few Russian friends. They are strange people. The advice the Foreign Office is giving is basically like follow everything the police tell you, even when you're going to get robbed by them. Just don't resist. They're basically saying stick to the fan zones, stick to your hotel, stick to your, oh yeah. Oh no, the Russians will. The Russians will sell alcohol. It's safer than the water out there. They actually advise you to drink the beer and the vodka because it's safer than the tap water. So that's how even Russians it's safer to drink the water. That's why there's such an alcohol problem. They're not going to not sell alcohol because the bars want to make money, and Heineken and Budweiser are sponsors. So they want to because Budweiser and Heineken are sponsors. Heineken sponsors the Champions League a lot. Budweiser sponsors the World Cup. There is going to be a big push for alcohol sales. Whether they should or shouldn't, I wouldn't say that. I would say the fans that are going are the brave idiots, and there are those who are there for the occasion who want to actually go and see a World Cup and go to say, look, I've ticked it off my bucket list, and they're oblivious to the danger they're actually going to put themselves in. I've never been more worried about the World Cup. I wasn't so worried about Brazil, and there wasn't actually that much trouble in Brazil, surprisingly. There was a few incidents, very, very minor, but Brazil wasn't that bad for the violence. It really wasn't. It was actually one of the most peaceful World Cups, apart from the political protests by the Brazilian people themselves against the government. There was no actual violence between fans for the most part. It was actually the Argentinians behaved themselves, and they hate Brazil. I don't. I also agree. I don't think Steven Gerrard will have an easier job as he thinks. I don't think the Rangers board or the fans will give him the time that he wants. They give him a 3-year contract. I don't see him lasting a year and a half, 18 months. I wouldn't even give him 2 years. And that's no disrespect to Steven Gerrard. He's done very well as a youth coach. But so Graham Murty, and they threw him under the bus. And I got criticised for saying that they threw Murty under the bus. Well, they did. Initially, when Murty got sacked, they said he quit, and then they changed their story to no, we've sacked him. So that's why I did 2 videos on Graham Murty leaving, and I got given a load of abuse by Rangers fans. It's like, well, in the first 3 hours he'd left the job, we were aware he quit. So when Rangers suddenly changed their tune, no, he was fired. But the initial 3 hours when that press release was given saying Graham Murty has left, his role as Rangers boss. The Rangers club put it out that he'd quit when he hadn't. They tried to paint him in a more negative light, and then they said, no, we did fire him. He wanted to quit. They basically tried to tar him with a brush of something that wasn't correct, and I think some Rangers fans have lost it. But I don't particularly like. I mean, apart from the few Rangers fans on here, in the main, when I've come across football fans, around the world, when I see people with a Rangers shirt on, I'm like, I don't like you. I've always come across this. I've come across this watching when I watched the 2008 Europa League final. The big screen in Manchester broke, so the Rangers fans assaulted a police officer for no fucking reason other than he was a police officer. They left him with severe head injuries, and they smashed up the centre of Manchester because they could. The Zenit fans, surprisingly for Russian hooligans, behaved themselves, because this was right when one of the few times a Russian team had got to a European final at that point, and they won it, and they behaved themselves. I watched that game, and I was disgusted by the Rangers fans. No, it's not a good move for Gerrard. I think he's going to have the same problems Murty had. Kashina, I've got his name right. No, he's Kaxina. It's Kashina's. He's going to have the same problems because of the financial instability behind the scenes. There's already rumours that they might go back to administration. Whether they're true or not is another thing. But because Rangers have been mismanaged for so long behind the scenes, it's hard for them to get the investment they need. And a lot of the Rangers fans are not got their feet on the ground. Now they may have full stadiums next year. I've had this argument as well with people about the amount of people watching Scottish football and football in general, and how I see so many empty seats. And he goes, but the attendances are up. So that's paid for tickets. That's not actual physically being there. You could have a corporate ticket. Let's say your company, or you get given a gift. Let's say you get corporate tickets. What are you gonna do? You tout them out. You make your money off them. You don't go. Especially if you're not a football fan, you get given these corporate tickets, and then that person you touted them to gets rejected because there's not his name on the ticket, and then you get these paid for tickets with no one sitting there. I think Gerrard would have been better served coaching in the lower leagues in England, or being an assistant first, like an assistant manager's role, and learning from another manager on the touchline, like Ryan Giggs did, and Phil Neville have done. Now, Phil Neville, people criticise him for taking the women's job for England, but he learned as an assistant to Moyes at Everton and Man United, and he also assisted his brother at I think it was Valencia, which didn't go so well, but he was learning how to do it and not do it. So it is what it is. I think he's brave for taking it, yes. And there's a lot of questions coming in, so I'm going to go through step by step, and we're going to go through. Latvian, I like Latvian ice hockey. There's some good ice hockey players, and Latvian football has been some good Latvian football players over the years. And for a country of a smaller population, the amount of sportsmen you produce year on year is good. I do agree that a championship job or a lower league job or an assistant manager position would have been better, but obviously he's been given a paycheck and he's got to, provide for his family. Rangers fans, yes, a lot of them don't have their feet on the ground. They get really shitty and whingy with the manager. It's not their, and it's not the manager's fault that the club has been mismanaged criminally for years. Hello, Wolfsburg fan. You're a new guy. Welcome. I'm assuming you're German. Hello. I've gone through a lot of questions. A lot came up. It is a difficult one for Gerrard. I mean, you got to start somewhere. I wouldn't have thrown to the wall straight away. But it's a bit like Guardiola being basically spoon-fed a big job. Barcelona, Bayern, Man City. The difference is Guardiola's always had money to spend. Gerrard will not have money to spend. We do get a highlights program over here in the UK for the Bundesliga, but I haven't followed it for a couple of years because I've got bored with Bayern Munich winning all the time. It turns me off watching, and it puts me off a little bit. I'm a Dortmund. I like Dortmund. I was born near Dortmund, so my German team is Borussia Dortmund. Not because it's my second favourite German team. It is my favourite German team is Borussia Dortmund. I used to live not too far from Dortmund as a child in the British Army base. Hamburg have never been relegated from the Bundesliga. And I said this in the video. If you look at top level football around Europe and South America, very, very few teams spend their entire existence in the top division. Liverpool is one in the UK. Celtic is one in Scotland. I think Aberdeen as well, possibly. I'll have to check on Aberdeen, but definitely Celtic. Barcelona, Athletic Bilbao, and Real Madrid in Spain. Italy, that's a difficult one because Juventus have been kicked out of Serie A. I think AC Milan were on the verge and had points deducted, and I think they just scraped in and so did Inter. But Parma, they're a prime example of a big club that's really fallen apart and disappeared. France, PSG, and Monaco have both been relegated out of the top division, even though they're the top two teams in France year on year because they have all the money now. So it's the thing. No, I don't speak any Latvian, but I do know some Latvian people. I actually understand a little bit more. I actually know more Russian than Latvian. I don't know how that's possible. I know more Polish and Hungarian than Latvian. It is what it is. However, Dortmund have qualified for Europe. They did get to fourth. Hamburg has got a very big rivalry between St. Pauli and Hamburg itself in the city, and that can get violent, and that's going to be a rivalry next season again because St. Pauli are in the second tier. Hamburg are going to be in there. I would expect them to bounce back. Otherwise, they're in a trouble. Dortmund aren't as good as they were 5-10 years ago, and before then, they actually had money problems. They were actually broke. So Dortmund have had a very history like that. Bayer Leverkusen as well, Kaiserslautern. A lot of teams in Germany go up and down. It's a more thing. Finally, in German football, loads of teams can go up and down through the leagues. But I've gone off German football because Bayern Munich win it all the time. And they've won, I think, 7 out of the last 10 seasons, which is off-putting as a neutral because I like Borussia Dortmund, I do. But when I look at a league and a team's constantly winning, it gets dull. And that is fans switching off because they know Munich's going to win the league. And it's a bit more boring, if you know what I mean. And then fans turn off. In the last 10 years, Wolfsburg have won the Bundesliga and Dortmund have won the Bundesliga, taking it away. The Bundesliga from Bayer Leverkusen won it a few times before Munich's domination in the recent last 10-15 years. It hasn't been a very competitive league for a while. It's getting a bit dull. It's getting a bit boring because you know that's going to happen. And that means a lot of the good talented players who will be at the other clubs will want to leave as well, so they can actually win a title elsewhere because they're getting bored of coming second, third. Even though they've got a good team around them, they haven't necessarily got the money and they just leave. It leads to a brain drain. That's what's happened with Scottish football. It leads to a brain drain, as I say. Bayern will not always be at the top, and they are showing signs of weakness because their team is aging. They've re-signed Ribery and Robben to contract extensions. I think that's a mistake because they're now past their best. And that could be their undoing next year. I think that really could be their undoing. Is Klopp better than Mourinho? Mourinho's got the European titles to his name. He's got Champions Leagues to his name. That's the difference. I think if Klopp wins the Champions League with Liverpool against Real Madrid, that may start shifting the balance. But Klopp hasn't got as many league titles either. I think Mourinho. I think their style of football, Klopp's style of football was better, but Mourinho's got more trophies because he grinds out wins. Whether you enjoy watching Mourinho football or not, I don't. I personally would rather gouge my eyes out. Is there? I believe Premier Sports and the Free Sports channel might, if you want to watch the IHF World Championships, they might be, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Yeah, there's probably some free streams on the internet. That's your best bet for the Ice Hockey World Champs, I'm afraid. I couldn't honestly tell you. I do believe that Premier Sports may be showing it, and maybe Free Sports might show some of the highlights. But there's otherwise not much selection there. What other questions we got? I'm not surprised Stoger is leaving Dortmund, but they did get into the top four, so they will be in European qualification. TalkSport, I'm not sold on Talksport. Yes, they've got the cricket rights to the overseas Test series in a couple of years' time, which is basically a V-sign to the BBC. Because guess who has Talksport? Rupert Murdoch. Who do we not like in the media? Rupert Murdoch. Who do I not buy any publications from? Rupert Murdoch. Why do I not have Sky? Rupert Murdoch. There you go. I'm done with my Murdoch rant on this live stream, because otherwise I will be here for a while, viscerally abusing Rupert Murdoch. There are certain figures in the sports world I really hate, and Rupert Murdoch is one of them, because he owns too much of the media rights, which could paralyse sport. If he decides to go, yeah, I'm not going to bid for them anymore, loads of leagues around the world are paralysed. He almost destroyed rugby league in Australia, so I hate Rupert Murdoch. I cannot stand him. And he saved Talksport, but at the same time, it means he's got even more control over the sports media in the UK and around the world. It's just wrong. But yeah, no, there's a lot of things being discussed, and a lot of it's football. This is good. It's good. But I'm open to other questions being asked, and if you want me to research certain stuff, I'm more than happy to do so. I know. No, I've never been to Latvia. The furthest east I've been is Croatia, into the former Soviet bloc, and that was nice. I've seen Hajduk Split Stadium from the motorway. I've been to Split in Croatia, and that's the furthest east I've been. I've been to a fair few sports stadiums though around Europe. But I have not actually been to Latvia yet. I wouldn't mind. And Latvia's not actually that far. It's only a 3.5 hour flight. It's only 2 hours ahead on the time zone, I think. Contact sports, right? Combat. I used to watch a lot of boxing. I don't now. I used to watch a lot of UFC. I don't now, and I occasionally, very rarely, and this is very rare, occasionally watch pro wrestling. I prefer the Impact Wrestling though. I'm not a big fan of WWE. I'm not a big fan of how Vince McMahon has handled a lot of things, and we can discuss the welfare of athletes a little bit in that question, because with the steroids trial in the early 90s, I used to be, as a kid, used to love WWE and WCW. And ECW and things like that. And my mum obviously watches a lot of news with my mum, because she's a very politically active and socially active person when I was a kid. And in fact, my family are, both sides of my family. And she tried to stop me watching it. Not because I would try and pretend to be a wrestler, it's because of what was happening with the steroids trial in the early in '94 with Vince McMahon. And then with the end of the Attitude Era, when Chris Benoit murder suicide, and they did do an autopsy, his brain was fucked. So when leagues like the NHL say that CTE doesn't exist, have you actually seen like some of the results coming out of the autopsies of former athletes who've been involved in combat or contact sports? You would be surprised. When they did an autopsy in Benoit's brain, his autopsy, he basically had the brain of an 85-year-old with late stage dementia who's literally about to have their life support turned off. That is how close Benoit was going to be to an early death anyway. That's when I started to fall out of love with pro wrestling. The UFC, I wouldn't say it's gone downhill since McGregor Mayweather. I think it's been going downhill for quite some time. I think the Bellator promotion and the UFC promotion have got a lot of their athletes competing in wrestling promotions on two-way contracts. It's an interesting one. I don't watch as much as I used to. I've completed the Mayweather McGregor fight. Mayweather's a wife-beating, vile human being who's also a racist. He's black. He can't be racist. No, black people are exceptionally racist as well as white people. Not all white people are racist. Even black people can be. And when you've got someone like that as your flagship greatest boxer in the world, apparently, which he isn't because he's not a world heavyweight. He's a middle, whatever. Yeah, that. Yeah, no, I'm sorry that McGregor has made himself the richest loser in history because how much money he earned from that fight, he makes himself the richest loser in history. I really, and then his antics at UFC 226, which is gonna lead in the prosecution. It's not great. Yes, Ireland is called the Emerald Isle for a reason. Latvia and Lithuania are rivals when it comes to sport, but actually they're quite friendly. Who's messaged me on WhatsApp? I've just got a WhatsApp, which is really annoying. No, Napoli have literally just imploded in the Serie A. They have just thrown away the league title. But at least it was very competitive in Serie A. So Serie A is getting more competitive at the top these days. So it's not going to be the same team winning. Like it's getting more competitive, which is a good sign for Italian football long term because they need this to happen. They do need the top 3 or 4 places to be very competitive. And I think this. They might have won 7 in a row, but because Napoli have pushed them all the way, that is good long term for the Italian national side and Italian football. Juventus are the most successful team in Italian football anyway for league titles. So yeah, they may have won the 7 in a row, but because it's getting more competitive and tighter at the top, that makes it. It's like Man United won 13 out of the 26 Premier League titles. No one ever talks about that. Man United's dominance of the Premier League. Okay, in recent years, not so much. But in the first half of the Premier League era, Man United was the dominant force. Look what's happened to England's national side. It's starting to become a more competitive league again, but again, at the same time, it isn't because now you've got the big 4, big 6, and the rich clubs trying to get as greedy. Brexit, I've done a video on this, and I think it won't have the bigger impact as people think. I think work permits, the amount of players who are not British or European who play in the Premier League, such as Sergio Aguero, for example, that's an example. Some of the Brazilian players, such as Willian, they always have to go through the work permit system. It doesn't stop them playing. I think it will alter the transfer market, maybe, which that might have an effect. It may mean there's more British players playing in British football. That could be a positive side effect. More youth players getting a chance because it costs more to bring a foreign player in. But foreign players have been coming into British football since the late 70s, early 80s. So it's you had Ricky Villa and Ozzy Ardiles for Tottenham. After 1978, they came over. They were the first foreign players really to come over here and play. So that is what started the wheels in motion for a Premier League in the early 90s with Greg Dyke going forward and proposing an idea for a more professional league. The reason why, I know United only won 3 in a row, but the reason why I say they dominated is you look at the teams that have won the Premier League title. There's only 6 since '92 have won the league title, and Man United have won 13 of them since 1992. So that's all I'm gonna say on that one. They're not dominant now, but the coming trophies they won under Ferguson, I'm just making a point that they did win the majority of the leagues in the first half of the Premier League era. Richarlison, he's still a Brazilian national, so it doesn't matter if he's got caps on. He's still a Brazilian national, so he still has a Brazilian passport. He doesn't have a British passport, so he still has to get a work permit because he's from outside the EU. I don't know what the EU nationals will have to go through. I think we'll go through a similar border that what we do when we go non-EU, declare, not to declare, British and Northern Ireland and Commonwealth nationals or whatever. It'll be a very similar thing. Certain Commonwealth countries, you don't need a work permit, some you do. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think it will affect it as much as people think. I think it may have a positive impact on the sports that are played here, possibly, but it may have a negative impact on the best coaches and the best players, but we shall see what happens. But bearing in mind, in the 60s and 70s, the South American players did not come to Europe to play because of political reasons. and they stayed at home, and they were winning World Cups all the time. Brazil, Argentina. Since the breakdown of the military juntas in South America, the military junta in South America, so the Argentinians, the Chileans, the Brazilian military governments being overthrown, they haven't won as many World Cups in football. Just a thought. If you have more domestically based players, you tend to do better at a World Cup. Just saying. The Italian team that won in 2006, all Italian based. The Brazil team that won in 1970, all Brazilian based. You notice that when you start having more players based abroad, your team struggles. What sport haven't I played? I haven't played lives. I've played youth level football, youth level cricket, rugby at amateur level. And occasionally, yes, I do watch Rick and Morty, and they've just renewed it for another 2 series. Have I just got? Yeah, I've got Xbox Live. So if you want my Xbox Live, I'll send you a message later, or leave a message in the comment section after the video, and I will send you my Xbox Live. So if you've got certain games, I'm more than happy to play Call of Duty and things like that. But no, the Brexit question is a very, very good one. It's not just football; it's rugby as well. It's ice hockey. People have got to think a bit more out of the box, and it's just going to affect football. There is more sports in this country than just football in the UK. Rugby, we've got a lot of foreign players playing. Ice hockey, we have a lot of foreign players playing. What do I think of it? I try and keep politics as much as possible off the channel. I think it's a fudge. I think had we been asked the question, should we stay in a reformed EU, we wouldn't have had Brexit. We'd have gone back with David Cameron to the EU saying, look, you've got problems. Not only are our voter base saying it, but I think a lot of people, and they might have acted differently, but the EU got the blinkers on when it comes to the mainstream thing. And I've lived in Germany and I've lived in Italy, and I've seen people our age group, because I'm assuming most of you are between the ages of 16 and 35. When you've got an unemployment rate Europe-wide, that's taken in Northern Europe as well, which is better developed than Southern Europe, of around 30 to 40% for that age group in certain areas, you've got a problem. That's your future. You're just not doing anything about. There's one of the issues. The immigration and the refugee crisis is another thing that Europe hasn't dealt with very well. They've not dealt with Russia very well, and clearly Trump really doesn't give a toss what we think. Brexit's part of it. We're not the only country to have enough of the bureaucratic EU. That's the thing. It may have had some good benefits, such as bringing peace, but trade does that, and so does NATO, surprisingly enough. That aren't EU things. I know you live in Ireland, so you're going to have your view on it. Yes, my dad did serve in the British Army during the Troubles. He lost friends out in Derry. So I will call it Derry, not Londonderry. I call it Derry because my dad served out there and survived a few bombings. I've had, we could say the EU was part of that, but so was NATO and so was the Americans. The Americans were a big part of that. Europe wasn't. 2 European leaders and the Americans sat down around a table. The rest of the EU did sod all for that. I remember when I was visiting Italy when the Balkan Wars were happening, and my uncle's brother-in-law got his call-up papers as a reservist by the Italian military. Not all the EU countries, just the Italian military. And that's at the time of Srebrenica. They thought it could spill over into Slovenia and then into Central and Western Europe. They actually really thought that. Europe really was toothless for the Balkan Wars. Millions of people displaced, hundreds of thousands killed. They allowed so many massacres to happen on European soil, did nothing. So, but I don't want to get too political because I have my views on some things Europe could do better. I think the EU's got too political and it should be just a trade body, because trade brings peace, not politics. Politics brings hate and division. Trade brings peace and friendship. That's my personal view. It's a simple view, but it really makes a lot of sense. As someone who's seen the bureaucracy of the EU, it does need reform, but we are better off than they're now. But I'm not saying everyone who voted, because people are trying to label Brexit voters as racists and xenophobes. That is not the case. But I'm I try and keep politics off the channel. It causes too much controversy. It causes too much vile. I've seen other channels where they've discussed political things, and I did do a video on Brexit and sport in the country, and I got some really moronic responses from one idiot, and I was just like, "You're ridiculous." I also did a video on the the national anthem protests in the US for sportsmen, and I had some really racist American Trump supporter giving me a load of abuse, and I shut her up in one comment. But I'm not going to give away all my trade secrets how I deal with trolls. But I try and keep. I mean, the Israel Folau one, I've had some interesting comments come back. They're not as vile as the American anthem protest sports ones, but I can see some people being in favour of Israel Folau and his homophobic views. But I've reached a point with him where I think one time, okay, yeah, you are religious. Twice in the space of a week, you're a dick. That's my view on Israel Folau. I think he's cooked himself. That's what's. Well, I honestly think whatever, because the National League is not an FA league. It's not in the Football League, so it's the non-league. And the National League has decided that 6 teams is best for them, and the Football League has decided 4 teams is best for them. When I hear people talk playoffs now, I think more ice hockey, and there's a big discussion about playoff structures post-season. So when we're looking at leagues with no promotion relegation, like ice hockey, or you're looking at football playoff or rugby, no one format is going to have 100% agreement with every fan base, every fan, and every player, and every team owner. No one is going to 100% agree. Clearly, the National League has done its homework and asked its members, who are non-league clubs, because they know that the top 2 clubs in the non-league go into the Football League, the non-league structure. So the winners of the non-league and the winner of the playoffs, they go through. So we've seen Tranmere go up today. It's an interesting one. Obviously the higher up the league system you go in football, the more money there is. I don't know. Clearly, the playoff structure works for both systems, but at the same time, there's going to be those who criticise the playoff structure. Should it just be the top 3 teams get promoted and that's it, and you get rid of the playoffs? But then there's money involved. Do you have a relegation promotion playoff like they do in Scotland, where the bottom team gets relegated, and the second bottom team and the second top team have a playoff? So, if you know what I mean, in the league, like that kind of thing, there is no right or wrong way to discuss playoff football or playoff sport if there is a playoff structure for a greater purpose, like postseason or promotion or who wins this league. It's a difficult one because rugby league there's questions about the Super 8s for both the top half and the bottom half, which deals with relegation, and the top half that deals with winning the Super League. The same can be said for the NRL. There is no perfect system that everyone's going to agree with. That's my view on it. I don't know enough about the football non-league, even though my dad and granddad both played in the non-league football structure. Oh yes, my dad played for Dorset Town, my granddad played for Stevenage Borough. I don't know enough about the non-league system, apart from the fact that 2 of my relatives played in it in the 70s. I don't know enough. The Football League system, I'm lucky in the respect that my team Blackburn, as far as I'm aware, in my lifetime has never had to go through a playoff. They've always qualified automatically. So I don't have to go through that worry of, are we going to make it to Wembley? Can we get knocked out in a knockout type thing? I've never had to go through that. I have got friends who are fans of teams that have gone through playoff structures. Again, I've got friends who are Swansea fans who went through the playoffs with Reading, and they won that playoff that year. It's a really complicated one because the winner and maybe the second place team or the third place team in said league, depending on the league, go straight up, and then you've got that playoff structure where a team that hasn't quite made the automatic playoff places, may not even be the third or fourth place team in the league, also goes up, and they could be the bottom end of the playoff places. So it sort of favours a team that's got a good cup mentality rather than a good league mentality. I don't know. There is no perfect system, though. There is no perfect system, but It's an interesting question you ask, but when it comes to playoffs and sports, there is no perfect system. Do you seed the teams? Do you put them all in a hat randomly and pull them out? Do you split them geographically, east and west? All sorts. There is no perfect playoff structure in any sport. I think at the moment, I think the FA is not going to change the Football League playoff structure, and I don't think the National League is going to change their playoff structure. I think they're quite happy long term with how they're going. The relegation system, just straight relegation. I think the English league system is happy with that. The Scottish league system is slightly different, but again, I think they're happy with what they've got as well. And I don't think any of the football associations in the constituent UK, so Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, or England, are going to change anything to do with their promotion and relegation structures. But it's an interesting point you raised, because if you go across the Atlantic to North America, they don't have promotion relegation, but they do have a playoff structure in almost every league you can think of. And I've looked at this. They've even got playoffs in the MLS. And I've looked at this and I'm like, how does that work then? And all of the playoff structures are all different in all the pro sports in North America. They're all completely different. Some, like the ice hockey, have a 7-game series. Others are straight knockout. Others, they seed them 1-8 in each conference, and others they do it differently, where 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5. Others, they do it randomly out of a hat. It is completely variable. And again, fans regularly say that they're never happy. They want to change this, they want to change that. Would this be better? Would that be better? But I don't see any of the professional leagues that have a playoff structure at some point in the postseason to either sort out promotion, relegation, or postseason honours in the leagues that don't have that. I don't see any of those leagues changing stance on what they already have. But well done for Tranmere today for going up. We have to congratulate Tranmere on their promotion today. Couple of years out, motivate. Obviously, they've got to 2 playoff finals in a row. They lost one, won one. Hopefully they can stay in the Football League and go up the Football League structure, because this is their first spell in the non-league, and I don't think they liked it very much. They're a very reasonable sized club. I remember doing the career mode on FIFA 2004 with Tranmere, winning Champions League, Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup, and winning a quadruple 3 times in a row. That's many years ago. I've got to dig my PlayStation out, my memory card, and see if I can. I'm still got the game. The MLS US Football League system possibly cut MLS 1, MLS 2, like they got with WSL over here with the women's game, with WSL 1 and 2. Possibly, but again, bearing in mind, Nashville, I believe, are the next team to join. They're paying $150 million to join. I don't think they want to join at the bottom level. They want to join at the top and win now. I don't honestly. I mean, it's been discussed. I watch other YouTubers who discuss North American sports, mostly ice hockey. And it does get discussed on, if you watch Post to Post, they're East Canadian. They're from Prince Edward Island. They have 3 channels actually, but they do discuss that the fact that we over here in Europe have a promotion relegation system. They discuss it on some of their videos. And there's another guy called the Hockey Guy who's in the west of Canada, British Columbia, and it's also been discussed on his channel as well. And I'm basing that on ice hockey, because we do have promotion relegation in some of the ice hockey leagues here in Europe. Football wise, they obviously call it soccer, so we don't confuse them with American football, because some Americans aren't the smartest people, as I found Canadians are, but Americans generally have a low IQ. Humour aside, would it work? I've seen it discussed on sports YouTube channels. They're actually through the TV networks that have their own YouTube little podcasts. I've seen it discussed by players and experts, and I've also seen it discussed on fan channels. It is a discussion point, but it's a major league system in North America. It's completely different to Europe. They have a franchise system. We have a club system. It's different. The league is owned by the owners over here. The league governs the game, and the owners own the clubs separately. And it's a different structure of how it's done. It's a different sporting culture and how it's done. It's an alien culture to the North American market, except the Toronto Wolfpack in Canada, the rugby league, which we're doing a video on tomorrow because they're playing a game tomorrow in the Challenge Cup. They are in the Super League. There is a promotion relegation system, and that is the only professional sports franchise in North America that plays in a league that's promotion relegation, because it's playing out of a British-based league. If the Toronto Wolfpack was playing, let's say, a rugby league structure in the US and Canada, it would not have promotion relegation. But because the Toronto Wolfpack is sanctioned under a British league system or a European league system, there is promotion and relegation. So it's a very alien concept, and then you have one team that plays in that structure on a pro relegation system. So, and the Toronto Wolfpack fans have bought into the Super League style system. You would have thought that they would probably try to copy the NRL style system, and there are plans to bring in a New York team in a couple of years' time and get them up and running, and grow the rugby league in the US because they're growing rugby union. If you look at the rugby union league, they've just started up the Major League Rugby again, no promotion relegation. So, and again, a playoff structure where the postseason is similar to every other major sports league in the US. I think it's an alien concept to North Americans. I don't think they can get their heads around it. And this is what you find with a lot of the American owners of clubs in this country. They don't initially get their, like, look at Swansea. They're basically relegated, even though they're officially not. But they're owned by an American. How is he going to cope with getting relegated to the Championship? It's all about that to them. He's going to make less profit in the Championship than he will in the Premier League, and ticket prices will reflect that. It's an alien concept to the North American sports market. They're learning it. The more they watch rugby league, rugby union, football, and they do watch more and more European ice hockey as well, where some leagues are promotion relegation, not all. They are watching more of our sports, and they're investing more in our sports by buying shares in clubs or buying clubs or coming over to watch games. But it's still alien concept to the sporting structures in the US because it's a franchise-based system. I don't think it happens. It should happen, but I don't think it does because I don't think the federation have got the courage to stand up to the owners of the league, which are the club owners, which are the team owners. I don't think they're more about the dollar signs and the capital flight that will leave the MLS. Bear in mind, the MLS has had a troubled financial history for half of its existence. The first half of its existence, it was basically broken. It was losing money hand over fist, and teams have gone out of business. So the federation won't step in. And the two minor leagues below as well have got money problems as well. And again, no promotion relegation. There's issues with scouting, coaching, development, all sorts. So we can debate how bad or good it is. It probably would be better with that kind of system. And it has been debated about other sports as well, but I don't see it happening because it's a completely alien concept to the North American sports market. It just doesn't work for them. They can't get their head around it. But a very good question, though, and I've gone on a bit too long about that. And I know you're a football fan, and that's what your channel is all about, and you discuss football issues from the UK and around the world. But it applies to other leagues as well. It is a completely alien system, and a system that I don't think the American or the North American, sorry, because there are Canadian MLS teams as well, would buy into, because the amount of money you've got to pay for an expansion team now. I honestly don't think it's in their sporting culture, and I don't think the fans would get their heads around it. I don't think the league owners would allow it to happen because the amount of money that would mean, prize money wise, and the investment you would get, it won't happen. It should happen, but it won't happen. But there's other things we can learn from the American style of doing things that they can learn from us. A lot of Americans, for no fault of their own, because it's their sporting culture to have franchise systems. Over here, the clubs are part of the community from day one. They're started up by working class mates. They're started up by people who may own the factory. A rich businessman may live in his town and go, I want to set up a football club today. Let's get some people who are my mates, who are also business owners in the town, to buy into the team. Let's get some of our workers to play in the team. The fan base is going to be all the other workers. It's a community thing. Whereas in North America, it's a billionaire goes, I want to have a team in this city. I want to build an arena here. I want to make as much money as possible. It's not as community based, even though it does become the city buys into it. It's not built because of the community going, we want this necessarily. It's an owner wants this, and then he does a season ticket drive to see if they're interested. Whereas the clubs in this country are set up by people. It's just the culture clash. It's different. It wouldn't work because some of the locations are very wintry at winter, and it hits about -40 in Minnesota. and it can hit about minus 25, 30 in Toronto. Vancouver is one of the few northerly cities they do play in the MLS. I'd much rather have a summer league than a winter league in North America, because the weather extremes, when it's winter, even as far south as Alabama and Georgia, it snows. The amount of games that would be snowed off in the US because of the weather. It just wouldn't work. A real Salt Lake would be under 6 foot of snow, and you would not be able to play. The American football, if you watch the Buffalo Bills game this year where they're playing in a blizzard where it hits about minus 20, football players would freeze. The fans would freeze. I'm not. That's why the two sports that are played in winter, as in ice hockey and basketball, the other two sports are played inside arenas inside. They don't play outside. Apart from the few winter classics, and even then it's been well below minus 20. And the players have said, Jesus Christ, I can't feel my arms and my legs and I'm wearing layers. So no, they've worked out there's a gap in the sports market. If they were to play at winter, there's not enough gap in the sports market, because there's so many sports being played indoors, such as basketball and ice hockey, that the weather can't affect as much, that it would lose out. That's why they have to do it in summer, because there's a gap in the sports market where the fan base can go, right, the football's over, the American football's over, the ice hockey, the basketball. Oh, now I can focus on my other sports team in the city, the soccer team, the Major League Rugby team, the baseball team. That's how it works in America. It wouldn't work in winter. Not because it's not a winter sport, it just would not work in the US, because the weather itself and the fan bases have too many sports thrown at them. And you've got to try and compete in this crowded sports market. Hence why the Major League Rugby is taking place in summer as well. They've worked out that the markets they've gone to, there's a gap there, and you've only got two other summer sports that are team sports in the US, which is Major League Soccer and baseball we played in summer. So it balances out 3 and 3. 3 Major League sports played in winter, 3 Major League sports played in summer. The city can go, we can support this franchise, and this franchise. Boom, it's easy. Because it's a crowded marketplace. And it's all to do with TV revenues and getting your TV slot. So, you make as much money as possible. Some parts of the US do not hit 36 degrees in summer. Some parts do. So if you're in LA, yes, it is going to be hot. If you're in Utah, you're going to be a bit at altitude, so it's a bit cooler. If you're going to be in Toronto, it's going to be a lot less. On average, there are still hot days, I'm not going to lie. But it is what it is. There's some indoor stadiums. They will play more games at night. But bear in mind, US transit, US cities are 24-hour cities, whereas over here in the UK, we tend to shut down 10, 11 o'clock at night. They can afford to have later games at night, because the cities are a very 24-hour environment where there's something going on every single day, and they've always been like that. So you can get more nighttime games. It is what it is. I don't think it would be more popular in winter. I really don't. I think it is growing in popularity. Otherwise, the league wouldn't be expanding as rapidly as it has, and they wouldn't. Atlanta sells 70,000 tickets every home game. They've got one of the highest average attendances in the world. If it is popular, it's growing in popularity. The issue is there's structural issues with the game. That's not to say it's a bad quality product. It's the level they're playing at is I would call Championship League One level, like in between, like round there. It's not on the same level as Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga. It's not on that level. It's the level below. That's the level it's at the moment. It will have been. I think we are underestimating. We are underestimating the possibility of the MLS and the US becoming a football superpower. We are underestimating that because of the population size and the fact that at grassroots level it's growing hugely, massively, because it's cheaper. They have a pay to play system, which is a bit wrong with the amount of money you got to pay, but it's cheaper than playing ice hockey or American football for the gear you got to buy. So more soccer mums and soccer dads can afford to buy shin pads, kit, boots, and football than ice hockey gear, pads, stick, skates, body armor. Same in American football. It's a bit cheaper, and so therefore it's more accessible for more people. And there's a big Latin American community. There's a big expat European. There's a lot of Europeans who come over who will have played the sport, who are, so it is definitely growing faster than we realise over here. I think most people realise. I think the media is very dismissive of the MLS. Honestly, we should take heed and more notice of this league. Um, Once they've gone through their teething problems and worked out the structural issues of the league and the federation and the minor leagues, trust me, in 10, 15, 20 years, this league will be at a higher level. It may never reach the level of the Premier League, the Bundesliga, the Serie A, but watch this space. No, I'm not watching a revision. I have a soul. I'd rather not. Predictions for my F1. I don't really watch F1 anymore. I find it antiseptic. I did watch the majority. I watched most of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix apart from the last 3 laps because I had to go to the toilet and I came back and Bottas has crashed. It's all gone horribly wrong and there's cars everywhere. But I find it really unentertaining. Really don't enjoy it. It I wouldn't be surprised if Ricciardo gets in the top three, maybe Raikkonen, maybe Bottas. But there's only 3 teams that can actually win a race, and they're the 3 top drivers at those 3 teams. So that's how uncompetitive that sport is. And those teams are the ones that are threatening to pull out if the F1 changes the rules, which Liberty Media want to do. So they're going to have a hissy fit. Um, but it, it is what it is. I mean, I've got to a point with F1 where I find it antiseptic to watch. No, I wouldn't even have it in the TV background to keep on because it will still send me to sleep. The commentary, people like Eddie Jordan and Martin Brundle really drive my nut because Martin Brundle's grid walks when he was on pay-per-view TV were absolutely. I'd rather gouge my ears out, my eyes out. He was painful. The grid walks now, they get rid of the grid goals. Is it sexist? They chose to do that job. They actually volunteered and chose and applied for that job. So it's not sexist. They're not forced to do it. And the Russians going, we want to have grid goals back. Sorry, I think we're becoming a snowflake society when they get rid of grid goals. I don't get it. I really don't. The touring cars don't get rid of them. The the superbikes aren't. I think so many people are becoming snowflake, lefty liberal, loony liberals, which is why this planet is fucked right now. Again, that's a political thing. I'm gonna try to keep it off. I don't mind. I like watching NASCAR because the fan involvement is there. And bear in mind, you can actually go faster than F1 in NASCAR, and there's less of this crappy DRS and have this flappy paddle this and this boost but that. And guess what? The car can last. The tyres can actually last a lot longer. They don't tend to just explode after 5 laps and fail. I mean, yeah, they do get punches and they do have spin outs, but I've been watching some of the NASCAR races this year where they do stage racing now. And all the cars are basically equal. That's why I have the restrictor plate track. So the less powerful engines can, you know, not be at a disadvantage, and the teams on a cheaper budget can actually compete and win races, and actually for the next year be bigger team. You get 40 cars doing a 210 mile an hour at what's the track's the fastest? Oh, I've got to know the fastest track. I think it's Phoenix. Is it Phoenix or one of those tracks where they do 210 mile an hour going into turn one? You don't get that in F1. You don't get 40 cars which are millimeters apart, nailing it full throttle, and they don't hold back. Occasionally, a bit of fuel saving when, like, they don't have full fuel centers. They have to go, okay, when was the last time we filled up? How many litres did you put in? Oh, Christ, how many did we start with? There's none of this tech crap. Honestly, I love watching NASCAR because it's fun. The fan involvement, you'll see loads of fans in the infield. You'll see loads of fans getting involved and meet the drivers, and the drivers showing around the garage. And it's not all these celebrities with the big glasses and, oh, look at me, these are average people from the local area taking their kids. There's loads of kids I see in the audience with the earphones on. It's a family thing. It's a weekend out. They go from the Friday through to the Sunday, maybe on the Monday. So if there's bad weather and the race is delayed, they'll race it on the Monday. And they reimburse the fans' tickets, and the fans come back in. You can camp inside the centre of the track. It's brilliant. F1 is elitist. It's too corporate. It's, oh god. There's none of them have any personality. They're bloody robots. I think Ricardo is the one with the most personality, if I'm honest, out of all the drivers. he's got a bit of personality about him, but most of them are just the corporate stooge. They've got to have their hat in the right position. They've got to show the bloody advertisement. I know the same happens in NASCAR, but it's an American sport. I'm used to North American sports. I'm a big fan of I'm used to the corporate thing because, hey, my granny used to work for an oil corporation. I'm used to seeing corporate badges on things. It's not alien to me, but Jesus Christ, none of their drivers have any personality. At least in Superbikes and MotoGP, you've got some nutters like, crazy haircuts. And I mean, Simoncelli, he was one of my favourite riders and sadly he died, but my God, F1 is just, it makes me physically sick because the cars are uncompetitive. They've got too much tech on them. The smaller teams are deliberately punished because they can't get up the grid. There's none of these restrictor plate tracks where the lesser horsepowered engines can have a chance. There's too many street circuits that don't work for F1 because you can't overtake. The few circuits you can overtake, you need a fucking boost button and a DRS button, which is bloody depressing. Where's the driver skill gone? The runoff areas are too big. In NASCAR, you get it wrong. You're in the barrier at 200 miles an hour and your car is wrecked. You aren't done for the day. Yeah, they take some really insane risks to win. That's why I like watching the Daytona 500 and the Talladega 450 or 400, whatever it is, and I like watching all that. And there's 3 different classes you can watch. You've got the truck race, you've got the Xfinity, and then you've got the Cup race. It's brilliant. So you get to see the young drivers coming through and the experienced drivers at the top, and you get to see, and you get 3 brutal races in 3 days. That's why I like watching touring cars with the support package and the touring cars. I love watching it because it's wheel to wheel, and they do it in such a way that the cars are basically given an even playing field. And the F1 teams like Ferrari, Mercedes, I know will leave if the smaller teams with the smaller budget are given an even playing field, we'll leave and we'll go throw our toys out the pram. It's just what. And what annoys me more is the guy in charge of the FIA, Jean Todt, used to be the chief, engineer of fucking Ferrari. There's too much politics in Ferrari, at least with NASCAR and touring cars. The politics, you can see your politics out the window, and it's literally then down to driver skill. And I think they're probably the better quality driver in stock car racing and touring car racing. They're a better quality driver. F1, I just would rather gouge my eyes out rather than watch it again. I don't watch it anymore. Some of the contracts signed, Melbourne makes a loss, Silverstone makes a loss. Some of the places they go to have got horrific human rights records, Bahrain and Qatar, and horrific, Azerbaijan and Russia, horrific human rights records. But they go for the corporate dollar. They don't give a toss about the fact that human rights are violated daily in those countries. So it sickens me. So that's me done. That's my politics. That's my F1 done. I'm not talking about F1 anymore. It's I hate it. Hate it. What else we got? Bourdais, no, he's very good at IndyCar. I think F1, his driving style didn't suit it. He's suited to IndyCar. He's a multiple world IndyCar champion. He's brilliant at IndyCar. I think he'd be good in stock car racing as well. In NASCAR, he's used to the oval, so he's used to being wheel to wheel racing. I would love to see Sebastian Bourdais take part in NASCAR. He is insane. He's broken his back. Yes, Kevin Harvick, Truex, and Kyle Busch. I'm not a fan of the Busch brothers, Carl or Kurt. I really can't stand them. I don't like them. Personal opinion, I don't like some of their antics, some of their driving stuff. Not a big fan. I prefer Kurt over Kyle, strangely enough, but I'm not a big fan of them. I like some of the younger drivers. I just like watching it. I just like watching insane 200 mile an hour wheel to wheel bashing body panel racing. Probably because I watched Days of Thunder when I was a kid. Do I have an Xbox? Yes, I do. So when I finish this live stream, in the comments section, just whack, if you want my Xbox Live, send us a message, and I'll be more than happy to give it to you. Mass Effect series. I wasn't a big fan of Mass Effect. I played a few of them. Wasn't a big fan. I prefer some of the Call of Duties, and I prefer the GTAs. If we're going to talk about Xbox games, but that's another video for a different channel because I'm not a gaming channel, I'm a sports channel, and I know we've done a lot of non-sports related questions tonight, and they're interesting and they're fun. But I know more about sports, and politics gets very divisive, and people have different opinions on film and video games and music. And yes, you did because you won 4-1. You were meant to lose, and they didn't like you very much. But hey, there's a reason why Hamburg got relegated. It wasn't just because you won today. It was a series of declining results over several years where they've been slipping average, no, down the table. The squad isn't as good. The fans, I mean, I don't know what it is about German fans, but or just hooligans in general. I just don't understand it. It's pathetic. It's stupid, and then you end up harming your club that you supposedly love to the core more. But no, Hamburg, yeah, they won, but their fans misbehaved, which means they're going to get a massive fine. But the club fortunes on the pitch, they've been declining for a while. So I'm not surprised that they eventually, lost out and slipped out of the Bundesliga. They will come back. They will come back. Club that size, city that size, needs at least one of the two big clubs in the city to be in the Bundesliga, be it St. Pauli or Hamburg SV. But whether they bounce back straight away, that's something that we'll have to find out in a year's time. We'll have to wait a year or so and see how they do in the second tier. If they can't bounce back straight away, that could be a very long stay for them outside the Bundesliga. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. I'm not. It's not great news for Hamburg, but it is what it is. And as someone who's falling out of love with football slowly, I think this World Cup could be what defines my future relationship with the sport, whether I keep watching or I decide to stop watching football or really start turning off. If this World Cup is full of controversy and security issues and violence, I am probably going to switch off watching football. I know it's the most on this live stream. It's been very popular, and I've got a lot of subscribers who are football fans. But if you look actually at my most popular videos, rugby league and ice hockey and cricket are more popular for view count than football. That's the irony of it. Most popular sport in the world, not my most popular videos on this channel. So I don't know what to say to that really. But the issues with football are structural. There's issues with UEFA, FIFA, and the various FAs as well. There's corruption issues. There's hooligan issues, security problems. There's issues with how much the players are getting paid, agents' fees, ticket prices, all sorts. Transfer market being overinflated. We could go on about the problems within football for hours, and we do that every live stream. So if you're new to the channel, trust me, every live stream we discuss so many football-related issues, such as the price of a ticket, the amount your players are paid, the agents' fees, the price of the Champions League final, the FA Cup final, the World Cup tickets, the big tournaments, all sorts, the corruption. It comes up every live stream, and for every new person who's new to the channel viewing, we go through the same thing every time. I don't mind doing it because you're new to the channel and it's your first live stream on the channel and you're asking the question. But and I'll try and talk a bit slower for those who are not using English as a first language, because I do talk quite fast at times. So that's my bad. I'll try and be as clear as possible. Now, Kaiserslautern have had issues. Dortmund in the past, yes. 1860 Munich, the other team in Munich, the other big club, they've had problems. Hertha Berlin, they've had a few issues in their time. St. Pauli, the other team in Hamburg. Werder Bremen, they're not as strong as they once were. Cologne have had issues. Mönchengladbach have been in and out of the Bundesliga a few times. People tend to forget that they've not always been in the Bundesliga. Lots of clubs. Wolfsburg, the history of Wolfsburg is sadly linked to the Nazi Party, because Wolfsburg is obviously where Volkswagens are made, and Ferdinand Porsche being a member of the Nazi. So the history of how the club was set up is obviously one of the dark periods of German history. But Wolfsburg themselves, the women's team is very good. The women's team, Wolfsburg women's team, is amazing. They're the best team in Europe. The men's team, yes, you won the Bundesliga, but it's a smaller market, if you get what I mean. A smaller sports market, as in the population area is a bit smaller, but they've stayed up. They have the money to invest in the club. The owners do. I wouldn't be surprised if Wolfsburg do win the Bundesliga again. The Bundesliga, even though Bayern Munich have dominated for the last 7, 8 seasons, or for most of the last decade, they've won. They've only lost out twice in the last decade to the Bundesliga title. More teams have won the Bundesliga than the Premier League, La Liga. It's a more open league in the terms of its entire history. In recent history, Bayern Munich's dominated, and only a couple of titles have gone to other clubs. But in the entire Bundesliga history, there are periods where other teams like Mönchengladbach and Hamburg and Schalke, Bayer Leverkusen, Dortmund, Wolfsburg, other clubs have lifted the Bundesliga title. So it's not just at Bayern's league by any means. It's just in recent times they've had the most financial stability and they've had the best squad. Simple. And it doesn't surprise me that Bayern are not looking as strong as they were when Guardiola was there, or Heinkes the first time round. And I don't think they're going to be on top of German football for much longer. I do think with an ageing squad, the fact they've signed Robben and Ribéry for contract extensions, I think is the wrong move. I think they should release them on freeze and said, look, go back to French and Dutch football. Try to find a Dutch club to buy Robben and a French club to buy Ribéry. That would have been a better idea. They've decided to keep them on the books, which I think is a mistake, but that's my personal opinion. We shall have to see what happens. The reason why tickets are cheaper in Germany is, firstly, the club has more fan involvement. A lot of clubs are actually owned by fan groups, or have the fan groups have shares in the ownership of a club. And also those clubs also may be linked to other sports as well, such as ice hockey and gymnastics and badminton and tennis and all that kind of thing. The sporting club European continental European mentality is more prevalent over there than it is over here. The wages actually, in real terms, actually really aren't. It's the cost of living that is different in Germany. The wages are actually very comparable. There are some parts of Germany that are very deprived. The ticket price is lower because the fans have more involvement in how clubs are run. And in some cases, they own the club. Other cases, they have a share of the ownership of the club with a majority shareholder, which is not the case over here. They have more accessible. They're more accessible to the fans. The German model works the best for club ownership. Less clubs now are in financial difficulty than they were, let's say, 10, 20 years ago. 10, 20 years ago, it was different. There was more issues with finances with Dortmund and Kaiserslautern and Cologne and Werder Bremen and St. Pauli and other clubs having money problems. But they've got the fans to buy in more and more and buy shares of the club, and it actually is a good model, which we over here in England and in fact in the UK should learn from. And there's only one club with fan ownership, and that's Exeter City. And they're actually doing it at their level. They're in the playoffs in League Two. They've got stable finances, and they are the best run club in the UK. In fact, I think they've been voted the best run club in the world for football. Exeter City, the fans own the team. The fans own the club and the team. And because of the financial stability they've now brought to that, because they own it, they're enlarging the stadium, and they're redeveloping their grounds at James Park in Exeter, and the club is looking like it could be on the way to League One. That's the difference. Is most of these clubs are privately owned, and but Leicester City actually had money behind them. Leicester City is not a poor club. They're owned by billionaires. They just put less of their money in than Man City, and yes, they did win the league, and that was to do with team ethic, a good manager, and the fact they all the style of football they played was successful that year. And they're still a decent side now. It's just they've had a bit of a wobbly patch. Leicester is owned by a private owner. The fans have very little say in how that club is run. Very little say. Exeter City, Exeter, in League Two, are owned by the fans, not Leicester. Two different teams. I do apologise for my accent. I do apologise for my my English. Either I'm English. I talk a bit quickly for some people. But Exeter City are in League Two. Leicester City is in the Premier League. They're very similar to your Wolfsburg. I mean, they've got the title one season, and they're going to stay in the league long term. It's whether that their owners decide to invest more money into the team long term, or if financial fair play rules finally and seriously get enforced by the FA, which the FA doesn't want to do. But yeah, anyway, we've been going. I'll go on for another few minutes, and then we're gonna wind this live stream down because we've gone on a bit longer than I thought. I was going to aim for about an hour and a half, and we've gone on for nearly 2. So I'll take a couple more questions, and then we'll call it a night because I know in Germany you're an hour ahead, and it's like 11 o'clock. Yes, Leicester and Wolfsburg are very similar in that respect. Very, very similar. But at the same time, Leicester's had success in the past with other trophies, such as the League Cup, and they've been to FA Cup finals, whereas Wolfsburg have had one less trophies. So Leicester have actually got more trophies in their trophy cabinet. So they've had various spells where they've been a decent side. It's not just recently they won the league; they've won the League Cup as well a few times in my lifetime. They've won a few trophies. I think they won the League Cup 2 or 3 times in my lifetime. So they have been successful-ish. It's just Grizzly Adams. Yes. There is Grizzly Adams. So yeah, any more questions? Because I'm going to start winding it down. So I'll take 2 more questions and then I'll call it a night because I'm tired and I actually want to go out and see a few of your mates and celebrate my new job. Get my new job and a few beers. I need to go to the shop and get some cash out as well from the cash point. So I'll take 2 more questions. So if anyone's got any more questions, get them in, and I will. It's no, I don't. I mean, it's not. I personally am more of a rugby union, rugby league, and ice hockey fan than football these days. But I will be covering the World Cup, and I will be, covering the friendlies building up to the World Cup, and any transfer news and bits and pieces. I will cover it because I know, as a channel that covers every single sport you can think of, that'd be silly of me not to. I'll be covering the French Open. I'll be covering Wimbledon. So yeah, I just don't pay as much attention to the Premier League as I did 10, 15 years ago when I was a teenager. I'm nearly 30 now. I don't really follow football as much as I used to. I will watch the games when they're on TV. I will watch the FA Cup. I will watch the World Cup. It is interesting. Right, I'll take this last question on the World Cup here. The 2 questions of the World Cup. Germany, it's going to be hard for them to repeat what they did 4 years ago. It's very hard to win back-to-back World Cups. Very few teams have done it. Italy have done it in the 30s. Brazil have done it in 58, 62. And that is it. That is how hard it is to win back-to-back World Cups. Will I be watching the World Cup in Russia? Yeah, I will watch as many, if not all, of the games. I will watch as many, if not all, of the games as possible, because I have looked at my data of people who view things, and the Women's FA Cup final had viewers in every continent, and in about, I would say, 80 or 90 countries around the world watched that video. I looked at the data. So yeah, I will be trying to watch as many games as possible because this is the best of the best. Now, so yeah, I will try and watch as many games as possible. I watched all of the 2006 World Cup. I watched all of the 2010 World Cup. I watched most of the 2008 Euros. I watched most of the 2012 Euros, and I watched, I think, all of the World Cup in 2014 as well. And I watched some, not all, of the 2016 tournament because I was working a lot of the time. I would say Germany get to the semi-finals this time round, or quarter-finals. I'm going semi-finals for Germany. I think Germany have lost a little bit with Philipp Lahm and Mertesacker retiring from the side. They've lost that bit of leadership in certain positions. Yes, McLaren, the volley with the brolly. I remember that game against the Croatians at Wembley with Scott Carson in goal. I do remember that game. But the reason why um, we failed to qualify was not because we lost that game at Wembley, it's because we lost 2-0 in Croatia in Zagreb when Gary Neville scored that own goal. That's why we lost that qualifying campaign. But no, Steve McLaren is a hopeless manager. I really don't rate him at all. But I think the issue with the England manager's job is the press automatically expect too much. I think we need to go in there, just just let the kids play, just take the pressure off them and let them play. Right, Germany. No, I don't think Spain or Germany. I'm going for a France, Belgium, maybe the Brazilians or the Uruguayans might have another good chance. Uruguay seem to do very well um, in World Cups lately. They've got a good side. I think the French have got some insane depth. I think the Belgians, this is their time now or never. I think Germany have lost a bit, but they still will be there. They're still one of the favourites. But don't be surprised if a Brazil, Argentina, or Uruguay has a good tournament as well. But I think it's more likely to be a European team. Right, I'm going to leave that there. So, good night, all. Thank you very much for everyone who's taken part tonight. It went on a half hour longer than I thought it would. I thought I'd do I started a stream slightly later tonight. But no, thanks for everyone who took part. I mean, it's. I think it's the best one we've had for people watching and asking questions. We've had a lot of football questions, but we've had some other questions as well. I try and cover every sport as best I can. We've had some new people join in as well, which is good to see. So yeah, thanks everyone. If you want my Xbox Live, leave a comment below saying you want it, and I'll message you on your YouTube channels. So if you want my Xbox Live and you play Xbox, like you play Call of Duty or you play GTA or God forbid a FIFA, because I've gone off EA Sports games. But if you play like Call of Duty, Advanced Warfare, World War II, or if you play GTA, I've got, and I will see you tomorrow.